This meeting of the Centennial School Board is called to order at 6:30 PM on February 8th, 2023, and a quorum is present. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's great to see you all here. It's great to see a full room. Jumping just real quick into our agenda, the meeting agenda has been distributed in board book. Did anybody see any amendments or anything that needed adjusting in the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
To approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We have approved the agenda. Let's see here. At this point, it looks like we've got some introduction of guests. Would you like to take that?
Sounds
Superintendent
good.
Owens?
We've got tonight a fall athlete recognition. And so we have our athletes who have done some amazing things this season, and it's an opportunity for us to recognize their accomplishments. To do that, we have a video that was assembled with the help of Chief Communications Officer Albert Rosales Correa, along with Dante Gouge, who is the athletic director for Centennial. And also, I believe that Missy Grindle might have helped a little bit as well. So all of that said, do you know Principal Miller if Dante is joining us tonight? He's involved in athletics, isn't he? Yeah, okay. So we'll show the video, and hopefully I can cue it up fairly quickly here. Very cool. So thanks for all who contributed to making that video. And of course, thank you to our athletes for their wonderful accomplishments. My understanding also, and if Albert will give me a head nod, is that many of those pictures were taken by our student representative, Edwin. So a lot of what you saw there was shot by him. So, and I also did want to recognize also, and Dante's not here, but Dante was inducted to the Washington State Track and Field Coaches Association Hall of Fame recently. So more to come on that, but that was an accomplishment that we wanted to recognize in addition to our athletes. Our athletic director has been recognized as well. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. That video was great, and yeah, the pictures were amazing. All right, looking ahead to approval of minutes. The previous minutes draft has been distributed in the board book, excuse me. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes needed? Yes, please, Director
When we
Gregory.
discussed candidacy at the end of the meeting, the minutes show that I said I wasn't
going to be running for reelection. It should be election because I was appointed.
Thank
A very
you.
minor one.
Did you catch that? Excellent. Um, uh, can I get a motion to approve with the adjustment?
Motion to approve with the adjustment?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Excellent. Unanimous, minutes have passed. Public forum. I don't think there was anything for us that came through. All right, we will jump right into reports. It looks like, was Edwin joining us online perchance or not today? I don't, okay, I don't see him in the room, so we will move on to Dr. Katsuda.
Oh, thank you.
Excuse my reach.
Yes, it is. All right. Is that visible? Yes, it is. All right. Good evening, board members. This brief presentation is designed to provide you with an overview and a recommendation for the district's transfer timelines and the number of students to transfer in and out of the district in support of board policy JECB, which requires the board to establish these figures by May 31st. Angela Colantino is joining me tonight, and she facilitates the district transfer process, which involves communicating and coordinating with our schools, other districts, and parents and guardians who request transfers. Okay, let's see if this will work. Yay. All right. There are two different kinds of transfers: intra-transfers between schools in our district and inter-district transfers between districts. Students who currently live within the Centennial School District boundaries may request to attend another elementary or middle school within our district. Decisions to transfer those students are typically not made until late August, about the time that schools have been able to confirm enrollment. In making those determinations, the following conditions are considered: adequate space and staff availability at the appropriate grade level, transportation that parents are agreeing or committed to provide to and from the school they're requesting to transfer into, appropriateness of the educational need for students. All approved transfers are contingent upon adherence to school behavioral, attendance, and punctuality guidelines. And the duration of their transfer request and the decision for approval of their transfer request is through the highest grade level offered at the school that they're requesting. So if for middle school, obviously till 8th grade, et cetera. Anything you want to add about that? That's good. All right. So the local school district, let's see here. Local school district by board action determines the number of students it can accept from outside the district through inter-district transfer process. Districts may decide the number of students to admit at the district, school, or grade level, the length of time, and whether a renewal is required. The process for an inter-district transfer requires parents and guardians to contact the resident school district to request an inter-district transfer release out of their district. That release serves as the application into our school district, and no additional paperwork is needed from the family in this process. to establish a number of students to accept through this transfer process and ensure effective school enrollment. We reviewed our current school enrollment, the physical capacity of our schools, the staffing, our district goals, and our district needs. Our recommendation to the board for the 2023-24 school year is to allow 180 out-of-district transfers into Centennial School District. That is 30 more students than we allowed last year, and we've added those 30 students to Centennial Virtual Academy. As they're building their program, we've identified the ability to increase enrollment capacity in their program. And in approval of this, we will continue to monitor school and grade level enrollment and transfer numbers to maintain effective programming in all of our schools. Let's see here. Are there any questions about that so far? No? Pretty straightforward. This is probably a well-known review for many of our seasoned board members. So, all right. So mid-year or summer moves, mid-year move transfers are granted for one school year and for students who move during the summer and have missed the inter-district transfer process. To apply, students who move into Centennial School District boundary after June 23rd, 2023, who are missing the application process deadline, will qualify for a mid-year or summer transfer, as well as students who move out of the school district boundaries after the transfer deadline into another school district and wish to remain in Centennial School District for the remainder of the school year. And again, transportation must be provided by the parent in approval of this transfer. So an application for an interdistrict transfer is denied, or if an application for an interdistrict transfer is denied, a parent has the option to submit a hardship appeal. We carefully review the appeal, and Angie and I spend some time throughout the month consulting on various individual student cases. We review the appeal to determine whether or not it qualifies for the hardship as defined by law. A hardship includes all of the reasons listed on this slide. This slide shows the data for the various kinds of transfers over the last 5.5 years. As you can see, the number of students who are granted intra and interdistrict transfer widely fluctuates from year to year and from kind of transfer. A couple of significant outliers are the mid and summer year moves, or the summer and mid-year moves. You'll see there up there, 2020-21, mid-year summer moves, 268 students. We talked about this last year as we reviewed this information. That was primarily, you can speak more to this, attributed to pandemic-related complexities. Families communicating or not communicating, the move, online, offline, a variety of options that were made available to families, and some other things.
A lot of school districts felt it was the best interest of the students just to keep them in school when we were online. So there was not a lot of enforcement on, the mid-year moves and the summer moves, and as long as we just wanted to get the kids in school, the students in school. And so after that ended, that was the time when we all notified everyone of what the options were to stay, and so that's why that number is so high.
Mm-hmm. You'll see another outlier. There's intra-district or within-district transfer for this school year. There's a little bit of a spike there, and that is primarily attributed to our middle school transition, which affected all schools K-8, right? So there are a number of families who submitted for transfer to remain in the school that their student was in prior to that for some of our students in the later grades within a grade level band program. A couple outliers. On the next slide, we'll talk about the interdistrict out transfers for this year, which is 92 in this table there. These different kinds of approved interdistrict out transfers constitute the 92 students. Yeah, we, 12 seniors, 22 siblings, 16 language immersion, 30 who have lotteried, who've been approved lottery, and then 12 hardship transfers. Please, yes.
You know, of the 30 lottery that we approved, is there more that, how many more were there that we did not approve? Like, how many applied for that lottery
Last year,
process?
there was approximately 46.
Okay.
Which was lower. There are some years where there's above 60 and then only 50%.
Yeah.
So it was slightly lower last year overall, and so what we do is we deny those, and then they can appeal them, and then some of those may have rolled into the hardship
Yeah.
requests.
Great, thank you so much.
Let's see here. Computer issues. All right, so for board approval, I've listed a number of items here for your consideration. Number of non-resident students to attend Centennial School, and we recommend 180 students as previously outlined in the slides. Length of request, we recommend that the board approve a plan that offers a transfer request at the highest grade, highest offered grade at the requested Centennial School. And we recommend 30 students for out-of-district transfers, the 30-student cap. And that considers the fact that we automatically approve, according to the plan we currently have, and the plan we're proposing, siblings who are enrolled in the requested district, students enrolled in their requested district as an 8th grader, and anyone who has requested immersion school programming, of which we do not have at this moment.
11th grader. I think you said 8th grade. But
Did I say 8th grader? I meant 11th grader. All right, are there any questions? Yes, Pam.
Going back to the previous slide, when we were talking about language immersion, could you explain that a little bit more to me?
Are you talking about this slide?
Nope, the one previous, where we were looking at the 92 interdistrict out.
Yes.
And 16 language immersion, 16 students requested to go elsewhere. Fill in the blanks, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yes, so they've, oh, go ahead, Angie. You go
So
ahead.
language immersion class schools are schools that they have a dual school of Russian. It's usually Russian and Spanish, and there is Reynolds has just opened another one for students of color as well. And so we allow those students because it isn't something that we offer a specific program related to those requests, because they can also apply for a hardship with that, and the way that the legislature is written, it does give them the opportunity for us to release them, and if they're requesting that, because we do not offer that program for them. So that's why we have offered so many of them. We have a very high Russian families. We have in the past, a lot of them have applied for that, and they have students that are siblings as well.
Like to go with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the statute that says if there is a particular, if there's a transfer request into a program of which the district does not provide, particularly language or some kind of immersion program, then we are required to release them.
And
If we-
remind me what we're losing for every head count that we lose, Paul,
Is it?
$9,500 leaves the district.
Yes. So it is something for the board to consider as we engage in our strategic planning, and the need of the community and our programming reflecting our community and the desire from the community to have language immersion. Yeah, and 16 doesn't nearly reflect the demand from the community for a language immersion program, but it does affect us in this way. So. All right. Oh, yes. State Director Hart.
Two questions. The first one was of the intra-district transfers. What schools were they? What was the balance? Like, are we seeing students flocking to one elementary school or between the middle schools? I mean, obviously this year's kind of weird with the middle schools, but was there, how are the requests within the district?
Yeah. You
Can
have
answer that,
her
yeah.
finger on the
Can you go
pulse
back
of-
to the slide that has the number on it, the grid?
Oh,
Yeah.
the grid? Okay. This one.
So last year was a little bit difficult because it was the boundary change as well, so we saw so many requests when it comes to boundary changes and families just being really comfortable where they were and not wanting to make changes. The middle school, a lot of the families wanted to go stay at CMS because that's just what they were comfortable with. They had a lot of students who had already graduated from there.
Yeah,
CMS, sorry.
that makes sense, that
Yeah.
students want to stay.
Yeah,
Right.
and they had been there, and, you know, and so that was the highest request
Okay.
and denial. As far as the elementary schools, I would say Pal Butte was the highest requested one, but I think Pal Butte had the most boundary changes, and they've spread out amongst our schools. So that's where that came from.
Great.
So, but in comparison, we have a lot of, you know, some years we'll have a lot of schools where families believe that that is, you know, the best school in the district. Some, and we, you know, it just depends. It fluctuates every single year.
Okay.
Yeah. But a lot of the boundary change was Pal Butte and CMS this year.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question was about the 180 students. You said something about them going all to CVA, is that accurate?
No, thank you. It's actually listed in the board note, our recommendation in terms of number of students where seats we're allocating for each school for inter-district or intra-district transfer.
Okay,
Last year, we allocated 60 seats to CBA. We've increased that to 80. So that difference of 30 is reflected in the 180 this year. Last year, we requested 150,
okay.
150 seats, yeah.
And just to follow up on that, you know, maybe it's for a different crew and a different people at different time, but why cap CVA?
Interesting you should ask that.
We talked about that last year. I think this question came up as well, and I'll invite Director Callahan if she has anything to add.
Is that we can,
But basically, what we had talked about was that the cap is just there to establish some sort of a guardrail so that there's not a significant influx of students that come in and we don't have the staffing to be able to support that. That said, if that were to be the case in actuality, what we would probably do is waitlist the requests that were over that amount and then quickly determine our staffing plan to be able to accommodate. But it just, I mean, just a couple of years ago, we opened CVA and it immediately became our third largest school. There was so much demand for it. There were 500 just on the first day. And so it's intended to put, and I think it's somewhat arbitrary, but it's intended to put a cap on it. And then we could take it to the board, you know, at the next meeting if it looked like there was a significant demand.
And we don't have a history of exceeding our caps. And if we started to, that would be another conversation and maybe a topic we could bring to the board, because I know that there's been some expressed interest in terms of the rationale for caps. But right now, we don't have a history of exceeding those caps.
thank you.
Yeah.
So did you take into account the fact that Portland Public is canceling their online school next year? They have over 250 students in their online school, and they don't consider that enough to continue having an online school. So,
We've thought about the fact that that's happening and wonder whether that will create demand for our online academy. David Douglas has an online academy as well, and I know that other districts in the surrounding area, but that could result in requests for our offering.
And it would be the wish of the board for us to bring back these numbers if we start to see a trend that we're reaching the cap for programs, which would actually be a good thing. Right, so. Yeah. Open arms.
That said, is there any plans of the district to communicate that offering or like publicize that it's an option?
It's not allowable for us to advertise
Okay.
because of us
Never
being a
mind.
public school. So if people do things like watch this board meeting and find out that we have an offering, that's one thing, but for us to, put banners on buses and things that you see other online academies do, that's because they are, virtual charter schools and are
Okay.
able to have a little bit more latitude in terms of being able to promote.
Okay.
Yes, yes, that is true.
Yeah, I just want to comment, I think in my thinking around this subject is that the assumption is that this is a net benefit for our district in terms of dollars, and that we are making more money than we are going to be spending in terms of online and, the virtual academy. So that's kind of my guidelines, and making sure if we're ramping it up that we're still making money to benefit the Centennial School District. We're not diverting our attention and funds to Portland Public Schools issues. If it's going to cost us more than, we're going to make, that we can use for our programs.
Jane's gonna put you on the spot a little bit about this. We're, and the concern is about decreasing enrollment, of course, and that means that as our enrollment's going down, so does the monies that come to school. It'll also mean shifting in terms of staffing as an outcome sometimes of that. So one of the concerns that we've been addressing with the virtual academy is making sure that we have trained instructors, because online instruction is different. I'm an online instructor, I know how I have to be trained to do it. So with that in mind, and the potential for having to transfer faculty to different locations because of enrollment adjustments, we offer in kind of programming for our current faculty to either learn how to be online or even think about online as an option for them if we continue to grow it. If we can capitalize, we don't advertise, but we capitalize on the fact that, for public students might be looking and maybe deployments. How do we prepare ourselves staffing wise? Because it's a quality piece as well. We want our students to be just as satisfied with their online experience as they would be in their classroom experience with their classroom instructors. And we need to train people.
Yeah, I would, and I've got a lot of thoughts on that. Let me see where I can start here. So one of my initial thoughts is that we scaled the CVA program out in August of 2020 and moved it up in a month. And so there was a lot of, something like that, you could take a year and you still wouldn't have it all right, and we, got it done that quickly. What was the quality of that? That's what you're getting at in terms of that piece. And I would also say is that we had staffing turnover between year one and year two as well. And so you have some scaling that needs to happen. The success rate of online instruction, truthfully, and this is coming from the Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state, isn't that good. And so the state has imposed, I think rightfully so, some increased standards as far as what online instruction looks like. And, one of those elements is more direct instruction from the instructor, because a lot of times in those platforms, it's self-paced, students are taking modules, and then the teacher's role is more of the assessment and feedback role and less about the instruction. And so that's one of the elements that we're trying to be very attentive to, is how are we providing quality instruction to accompany what they're doing with the online platform, so the platform isn't the teacher, but is an aid, just like technology would be in the classroom. But I will also let Director Callahan speak to that, because what you're asking about is the teacher training piece, and if we need to influx new instructors, how do we provide them the proper onboarding to be able to be capable of doing that in an efficient amount of time? Yeah.
And then I would also add, related to professional learning, having someone in that position full-time this year, and last year was half-time. This year we have Zach Ramberg, and he is able to connect with the educators and connecting with the families and making sure that the students are getting their needs met, and has a really clear vision for next year to really have that face-to-face increased between the teacher and the students and the families. And we've been striving to do that and have made some gains, but I think through his leadership, I think we could see more of that. And I'll just a little tickler, if you will, that actually Marin and Zach and I met yesterday looking at next year and how we plan to kind of do some integration. We were hoping for that this year. We're with the high school, specifically with the high school. We're doing some dabbling in that, I would say, this year and testing some things out. And imagine we'll be back to share more details in the near future.
Principal Miller, you look like you have some thoughts that you wanted to add.
No, just looking forward to, we did meet yesterday, and it's always been a vision of and this goes a little bit with what the board was just talking about, the different modalities of learners and the flexibility to provide our learners what they really need. And sometimes that might mean, hey, I really need to do this math class in person because that's what I need. I need somebody there. Where, hey, this social studies class, I would learn better in a different type of situation. And so we are looking at, and we'll bring it back to this board, at a more flexible model of how do we actually meet those learners now that we have just more out there.
One other thing that I would add to finalize the response to your question is that keep in mind the board has CVA to consider later on this spring. We are year to year on the program, and so the board has a decision to make later on this year to determine if we continue the program, and if so, do we continue it in perpetuity, or do we continue it on a periodic basis?
And I'd say all of the transfers from, say, Portland Public to the closure of that program are contingent upon Portland Public releasing those students. If they have another program that meets the same needs or has similar criteria, they can actually very easily and rightfully deny a transfer, which makes a decision for us. And just because they release them, if we are not ready, it doesn't mean we're required to, obviously, but something for us to consider sort of flexible, adaptable growth within that program as we move forward. So, yeah.
May I add one more thing?
Sure.
So because our CVA is a program, we require an inter-district transfer and not an intent to enroll like other charter schools. So also that kind of blocks your window of time to accept students because you have to rely on the other district releasing them. So that is something, it isn't something that happens full year round. If we get a student that is interested and has been released, then we do take that into consideration and we do take this student. But because we are a program, our window is also a little different.
One thing I'll add as well, and not to make it more difficult overall, but what I will say is that what you have for your consideration this evening in terms of the transfers, because I saw some math taking place at the table, $9,000 a year times up to a decade. That's $90,000. You're making a $100,000 decision, and that's leaving with the student. So, there's a high dollar amount that's associated with us receiving and releasing students. And so what you'll see tonight is the administration's recommendation as far as how to proceed, but you are the board, and you have the authority to amend our recommendation as well. So that's just for your consideration, too.
Yes.
When we look at the chart, and it's the one with all the numbers on it for 17, 18, 18, 19. One of the things I'd like to see us do across the board is remind us with the asterisk as you have. These were pandemic years. These were boundary change years. Because when I look back on it, some of this, it's like I don't remember what was going on, but I can see a spike.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and then it's like, oh, there's the explanation. So if we could just have those little
Yes.
dots and things to help us remember.
Yeah.
And for us in particular, because as you were presenting tonight, you said, oh, but the boundaries, and oh, the students who didn't want to leave their schools, and all of those kinds of things that are spikes that are maybe not going to be something we would be experiencing in future years, but we will be experiencing maybe in the next year or so, because we do have 6, 7 middle schools and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So just
I'm happy
help
to
us.
go in and add those notes beneath the
just for-
chart and note it, connect it to the
Perfect.
numbers, just for historical record, so. I'll do that and I'll reshare those slides with Mason. Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Yes, okay. Good evening, board. Hope everyone's doing well this evening. All right, we are going to talk about alternative education programming as a precursor to information that's coming later in the board regarding an updated policy, as well as the list of alternative educational programs. All right, so after this presentation, I hope all of you will have a better understanding of the following. The difference between an alternative option and an alternative placement, as we've defined them in the district. The process that students and families and staff follow regarding alternative options and alternative placements. And then also collectively what our district responsibilities are regarding alternative placement programs, alternative education programs. So alternative education programs, as you can see up here by the top definition, this is taken directly from the proposed new policy from OSBA. And it really highlights that there potentially could be a school or specific classroom programs that work to serve the needs of students and or their interests. And it helps really to support them in achieving academic standards, both at the school, district, and the state level. And so for us as a district, we've distinguished between alternative options and programs. And so when you look at alternative options, these are general education settings that a student or a family is choosing based on what we have developed as a best fit matrix, and it has to do with availability. This is an option for families, and I have an exception there. This excludes expulsions. Those are exceptions for this. If a student is expelled, we do offer them 2 options, which is part of the expulsion process. Those 2 options typically are within the alternative options. There are often families that weren't looking for an alternative at that point, but because of what has happened, it's within that. So I just wanted to allow that additional information for you all to recognize how other students might get there as well. And then if there are alternative placement needs, that is something that specifically a student's individual education plan team, their IEP team, or a 504 team comes together to determine that a more restrictive placement is needed. That's not something just as a school district we could say, hey, the student's struggling, let's just send them there. There really is a very specific process based in lots of special education law, and it's based on a continuum of placement options. And those placement options can range from students who are in general education 100% of time. Special educators in general educations are co-planning, they're co-teaching potentially, or they're consulting on services, all the way to students who might need home tutoring. So there's a whole array, and that can include special classes, both at the district level or with partners with the Multnomah Education Service District. It could also be a special school that's just for students who are eligible for special education. Again, as highlighted at the bottom, those within the continuum can be offered at the district level or something that we partner or contract for. I've also included options so you can see later on when we're looking at some of the ones that are on our list right now where organizations or programs fall. The list that is here for alternative options, again, these are all general education options. If a student's eligible for special education and their needs are able to be met there, they're also able to access these sites, so they're not restricted from anyone. But these some of these options do not offer special education services, so that is a conversation. Some of these programs do not offer services for our students who are multilingual, so those are also considerations that are put into place as families are talking about or students are looking at other options, and many of them do provide those services as well. On the following side, for alternative placements, you can see the programs or the organizations or within our own district offerings that we have that qualify as special education alternative placements. And again, these are only accessed through the IEP process and placement process. And one of our board members is very well aware of the Columbia Regional Inclusive Programs that is housed at Creston and has been at Creston, and we've had several students who have gone through it. It's specifically for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, and those are services that they support at Creston as well as Mount Tabor. And those are a variety of services. Some of the programs that are listed on our list for approval, which are not listed in either of these buckets, are programs that we as a district do not send students to. And so those include examples such as Kerr Youth and Family Center, Edwards Day Program. Those are programs that are accessed either through the Department of Health and Human Services, DHS, for students who are in foster care, or they are accessed through mental health partners, and so students needing a higher level of care. But as a district, if they are one of our students, we partner around and we provide transportation if that's needed. So that's why they show up on our list as something that we do need to approve, but we're not paying for that placement and we're not placing students there either. Processes that are included here, you can see if students are or families are looking to have, let me see if I put enough there, an alternative option, you can see that there are several steps that families have to go to. And thinking about the conversation that just happened with CVA, I know there's many conversations occurring with Zach Ramberg as well as Melissa Danini, who is our reconnection specialist, around how can CVA support students who are needing alternative learning options, but maybe they just have a few credits. So can they access CVA for just a couple credits to finish and graduate versus accessing one of our sites or our comprehensive high school if it did not work with their learning needs. So we do have many students and many teams that go through this iteration for quite a while in services because we do want to meet students' needs within our comprehensive school settings. The alternative options also are basically only available for our students who are in high school. There are not any middle school options out in East County. There is one middle school option. It's in North Portland, and that's a really long drive for students to either bus or families. So the options right now really are limited to secondary, thinking about that high school option. And then, as we've talked before with alternative placements, there's a very specific process that IEP teams are going through. It really has to be based on data connected to students' IEP goals. They also are looking at the level of support and need that a student has. Sometimes a student might be making progress, and the level of need that they have is outweighing the level of support that we're able to provide, whether that's around physical safety or medical management. And so those are considerations teams take into place also. And once a team makes that determination, it comes to myself, and we have Patrick O'Brien, who supports case management there, and we're looking at what's available. And over the last couple of years, as we've struggled with staff, our other partners have struggled with staff too. So we have had students on wait lists. We've had to come up with some other options while they're waiting for other placements. And as a district, we have several broad-ranging responsibilities. And so one is, the student services director needs to have a working knowledge. As a school board, it's really important to have a working knowledge also. And when we're working with our building team, especially when we think about our secondary team and how they are connecting with students, it's really important for them to have that information as well. We do annually need to go through and review the program list and have that reviewed and approved by the school board to help continue those partnerships. And there's also a piece that's put into place that each year all of the programs that are on the alternative education list go through an annual evaluation. And luckily here in Multnomah County, that is something that's collaborated between all of the districts in Multnomah County. And so instead of each of these programs having 7 or 8 different school districts individually connect with them to do the evaluation, there's a group that comes together and they divide up and then they each do a piece. And then at the end, we have one culminating report that serves as this piece for all of us so that we have all that summary information here. So in closing, I hope you all have gathered more information about alternative education and the difference between options and placements, as well as the process and some of our responsibilities. Happy to answer any questions.
Great presentation, thank you.
Staffing. So it's a challenge everywhere, yes. So is staffing a consideration? I mean, we just get down to it that we don't have it. We could provide it, but we don't have somebody that has the skill sets that are necessary for that student. That becomes part of the conversation that you would have to find a place that would serve that student. Is that, are we there yet?
So we have amazing staff in Centennial that are working really, really hard to support every single student who show up every day. And we have students who have really complex needs. We had many students who had complex needs before the pandemic, and then we've had many students who, while enrollment is decreasing, need for students isn't decreasing. And we have had staff shortages in the district, and that has impacted a lot of things. And so supporting students, especially when it comes to consistency. And so for some of our buildings, if they have high sub rates, they might have subs, or they might have staff who are really well trained to work with an individual student. They're able to provide that program. But if there are staffing shortages or if there are unfilled subs, that has an impact on students. And so building teams are having to look at that all of the time. From a family and a legal and an IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and the Oregon Department of Education, our lack or inability to provide adequate staffing to support students is something that we have to work through. And so teams have to really seriously look through that. What adjustments can be made? What program planning can be adjusted to support a student here? And if a team gets to the point where it's only about staffing, that's a really difficult place. And we have to look within our budget because we're only allocated so many hours of classified staff, so many hours of special education. So we're trying to utilize that to the best ability to support as many students as possible. And it doesn't necessarily always meet the needs. So it's on a daily basis trying to meet student needs and make sure staff have what they need to support students.
And to follow that up, is this also something that is something we could do in-house? Right? I mean, I don't know the complexity of it, so this may be just a silly question.
Right.
But
Right. It is not a silly question, and Director Southerton and I have this conversation often, so it is not silly at all. And we've seriously been looking at it for the last few years. Of the programs that we contract with, which of these services could we potentially provide in-house? And so right now, if we look at, let me get you back so you can visually see. So on this list right here, we have, in district, we currently have an elementary, middle, and high school behavior-supported classroom and a special class. So we have 6 in-district classrooms right now. And we also have many students who are in the Multnomah Education Service District special classes as well for functional living skills. And so we have more students in all of those classrooms at elementary, middle, and high than the rest of the county. They happen to be located in our buildings, which we're not placing students just there because of proximity, but because of needs. Many of the students in the MESD classrooms have really high complex medical needs, and so that takes additional nursing staffing, takes additional occupational therapists, physical therapists, and so right now the MESD is able to provide those services, and that would be a lot more staff on our end. Another example of a program is also with the MESD. They have the Wheatley Alt site, and when we look at the service plan, it's one of their options there. And a placement there can range, I'll give you a very specific number. If a student needs an additional educational assistant to support them while they're there, the total cost of that placement is $178,000. And so that is based on students who have really, 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 really complex needs that include really high functional needs. So self-care, following functional routines of putting on your jacket, walking, and they require a high level of staffing. So many of the students there have 2 to 3 adults working with them at one time. So that is a program that we could not replicate also because it's a locked facility just so students aren't leaving and running into the street on accident without having awareness of safety. Just again, the level of program supports that's there. So we continue to look at which students can we bring in and support in-house, and how can we create more opportunities in the district with the funding that we have, because Some of this, if we're spending the dollars in district, we're providing more of that closer student to school relationship, and hopefully the services would increase as well. So, yeah. Mhm. Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
I'm curious, the role that safety plays in some of these placements and, wanting to see us do more. Is that something that's possible? I mean, like, so my career started in day treatment, so, like in one of these alternative placements. And I think they're good. There also is a high level of like physical restraint and things that come along with that. And I think that how do you kind of draw that line of like a student, like the safety is a concern for the staff and the peers and that student?
Those are conversations that IEP teams are having on a regular basis, and we want and need to keep students safe, the individual student,
Yeah.
their peers, as well as staff who are working with them as safe as possible. And so we have about 150 plus staff who are trained every year around nonviolent crisis prevention. 70% of that really focuses on de-escalating, and there is a percentage that does focus on the physical management. There are students who need to be restrained because they have gotten to the point where they are so unsafe to themselves or others. In district, our numbers are fairly low. When we had the report, about 14 to 17. Often students who are in more of the restrictive placements have really high restraint and seclusion rates, minimizing the seclusion, but really high restraint, which indicates that level of physical, just the way they're expressing, how they're either communicating, how they're frustrated, how they're escalating, and they're needing that level of support. So that, again, is something that in-house would be very hard for us to manage, because right now we do have students who, if they are upset, they are escalated and they haven't been able to calm down, that have run through our house screaming, who have gone through and ripped things off, and they're not at that moment a harm to everyone, so we shouldn't be putting hands on them, and it is a disruption to the learning environment, so teams are constantly having to balance that part.
What kind of de-escalation training is there, not just for those teachers, but like all teachers, to be able to address some of that?
Yeah. Really great question. So nonviolent crisis prevention does have modules for all staff that could get more of that. The work that we're doing with responsive classrooms right now in creating a healthy classroom culture really helps with that as well. The stronger that relationships are between students and families, that's helping. We are partnering with the Shadow Project, and part of what they're doing in our elementaries and the middle school, and we're working middle schools, and working on it at the high school, is creating a sensory space, and that's really meant as a proactive strategy before students become escalated. We have our school counselors that are working, so there's several things, but adding more tools to our classroom teachers' toolbox is always something that's needed, and especially power struggles can escalate really quick, and so how do you think about your language in the moment so you don't get to that point with students?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, David.
I'm just looking at number 3, the evaluating the alternative programs. As
yep.
we look at the list later on tonight, can you just elaborate on that joint evaluative process, particularly to results for the students? How do we measure that or anything? And parental complaints, is that an aspect of it?
Yes, so when we review the policy that's up in the policy, it outlines several of the requirements of the areas that we need to review. Some of it is the program in compliance with several specific Oregon regulations. So are they doing those pieces? Do they have trained staff? So they're looking at several of those components. And then collectively for our county, we're also looking at how are they collecting and reporting attendance information to districts, behavioral needs that are coming up. Are they having that two-way conversation? We're looking at graduation rates. So there are a variety of questions that are asked. We also, they also conduct interviews with staff and students and families to see what their experience is as well. And I'll have to double check while I'm sitting back there if the parent complaint piece is in there, because the Oregon Department of Ed collects parent complaints, and that shows up in a couple different places, and I need to see if it shows up in our alternative ed evaluations. So.
Okay, and is there a ballpark, like how many programs get kicked out after this evaluation program? Like how many fail?
Right.
What's the failure rate?
Typically, none of them fail. So, I mean, and not because they're not doing a good job. Part of what all of the programs on this list, even before we evaluate them, have to go through a process with the Oregon Department of Education to be approved as an alternative site. So they go through that vetting with them before we go through and do our annual. There are definitely areas that have come up each year for several of the programs around pieces that we want to follow up. So communication might not be as strong in some places. Wondering about more teacher training. There are specific pieces that will follow up collectively of the group, and our partners are very responsive about that.
Oh, okay, because yeah, I understand sometimes it's an all hands on deck kind of situation, and yet then I'm concerned, as we are the ones who are looking at these programs and saying, yes, we put our stamp of approval on them. If it's 100% pass rate, I'm always kind of concerned, are you actually measuring things right? Because how do we take the responsibility of saying, no, like this one program has like a 25% score on whatever audit, maybe we need to kick them off the list. But again, I understand it's kind of like whatever program we can get, but I wonder about our role in that.
Well, an example, when we look at the Cartini Clinic, who is on our list, they had been advocating with districts for several years to be in partnership in contract with us. And before we would do that, even though they had a great sales pitch, they were ready to go, they fill a niche to support students, we had shared with them, you need to go through the Oregon Department of Education process, and we need to go through the evaluation process with you all first before we'll even consider putting you on. And they were able to meet all the requirements. And again, as a district, very, very few students access that, but we wanted to make sure, even if it's one or two students who access it a year, are they meeting the standards that the state has put together and collectively as a county that we see are important. Yeah. Yep. You bet.
Next up on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
All right, it is my pleasure and privilege to share this report with the board. There are a lot of positive things happening, and I'm excited to share some and feature some highlights. First, I want to recognize that February is Black History Month. It's an opportunity to celebrate the incredible ingenuity, strength, and resilience of the African diaspora. This month, Centennial schools will highlight and honor some figures who have broken barriers and helped pave the way for many others, both in the Portland area and beyond. On the screen, you will see the recently developed Centennial School District monthly celebrations and Heritage Month website, which you can't see all that well, but it's there, which is a compendium of resources for educators to be able to access throughout the school year. Special thanks to our district social workers and their work on developing this site in collaboration with Director of Student Services, Denise Wright. And Megan Christopher, who is our district's multi-tiered systems of support coach. Thank you. February 6th through 10th is National School Counseling Week. School counselors provide an essential role at all levels across our district. They are uniquely trained in child development, learning strategies, self-management, and social skills, who understand and promote success for students. They implement a counseling program to support students, and the program provides education, prevention, and intervention activities, which are integrated into all aspects of children's lives. They teach knowledge, attitudes, and skills students need to acquire in academic, career, and social emotional development, which serve as a foundation for future success. Here you can see a few of our school counselors who are featured on social media this week. See if I can get that banner off the There's some sort of a thing covering the screen. Let me try to share again. Oh, it just,
Oh, it's your toolbar.
that's weird. I'm trying again, see if I can. Oh, now you get two. Oh, well, we'll work through it. All right, nevertheless. So here you can see a few of our school counselors who were recognized on social media this week, and here are a few more of our school counselors. School counselors are integral to the total education program. They provide a proactive program that engages students in leadership, advocacy, and collaboration with school staff, administration, and community and family members in the delivery of programs and activities to help students achieve success. They also collaborate with teachers and parents on early identification and intervention of children's academic and social emotional needs, which is essential in removing barriers to learning and developing skills and behaviors critical for academic achievement. A lot of what I just said is a lot of what we're exposing and elevating in our strategic planning process as well. Research shows that counseling programs as outlined by the ASCA national model, which is the Denise, it is the Association of School Counselors Association. Yep. A framework of school counseling programs have a positive impact on student achievement, and the implementation of school counseling programs is one of our Destination 2023 key priorities and strategies through this school year under the leadership and direction of Director Wright. Pool ribbon cutting. So it was good to see many of you a couple hours ago at the Centennial High School pool for the ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate the recent investment in the pool made possible by the voter-approved 2020 capital improvement bond. The updates and renovations to the Centennial pool will add years of continued use and the opportunity to be enjoyed by many students to come across our district and community. As many of you know, I'm a product of Centennial and specifically the pool, and my experiences in the pool were a driving force that have led me to where I am today. So as you can imagine, it was an extra special moment for me personally, and it was great to see some folks that I hadn't seen in the last 20 years or so as well at the pool this evening, so that was fun. Special thank you to Chief Communications Officer Albert Rosales Correa, who worked in partnership with Centennial Athletic Director Dante Gouge to coordinate the event. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, there is a lot happening on the strategic planning front. The second Strategic Planning Family and Community Forum happened last Monday. This time the forum was virtual. A total of 46 participants, including translators and Centennial staff, participated. Participants had the opportunity to view and weigh in on the draft graduate profile and the draft goals and measures of student success. Special thank you again to Chief Rosales Correa for his work in coordinating the Zoom platform to include translation channels and translation support for multiple languages, including Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Arabic, as well as thank you to Director Harden, who attended and participated, and I had difficulty tracking that evening, so if other board members participated, thank you to you as well. Our instructional focus team met last Tuesday. I've been able to make most of the strategic planning meetings, but I missed the majority of that one because there was an overlap in my schedule with the Center for Advanced Learning board meeting. So nevertheless, here's an image from the meeting that I was able to capture when I was able to join. Last Thursday evening, the third and final alignment meeting took place, alignment team meeting. As a reminder, the alignment team is comprised of community leaders from higher education, community-based organizations, and governmental entities. This team reviewed both the draft goals and the pillars to brainstorm and make recommendations as to strategies that would best support the goals and pillars. I appreciate Director Lynn for his participation in the alignment team meeting. And yesterday, our administrative council also met to perform a similar activity of taking the goals to kicking the pillars and try to brainstorm strategies that would match those. The input from these various teams and forums, the community forum, the instructional focus team, the alignment team, and the administrative council will be fed back into the core planning team, which meets tomorrow. And you can see the graphic here depicting how those auxiliary committees help inform the main work of the core planning team. As an aside, I spoke within the last couple of weeks to the Hillsborough School District Superintendent Mike Scott, whose district is also engaged with Performance Fact for strategic planning facilitation. They are a little bit ahead of us in this work in terms of schedule, and his words of advice were, it all comes together. And I can agree that I'm seeing that and excited for the core planning team meeting tomorrow to see how that starts to happen. Finally, on the topic of strategic planning, as you'll recall, an accompanying part of our process is the integration of an in-depth equity audit. Today and tomorrow, representatives from the National Center of Urban School Transformation out of San Diego State University are visiting Powell Butte Elementary School. During their process, they will observe in every classroom. They will meet with focus groups of students, parents, classified staff, and licensed staff respectively, as well as observe professional learning communities or PLC processes. From these observations, they will develop a report that offers both affirmation and recommendations for growth for both the schools that they visit as well as the district. I know Centennial High School has had theirs and they've actually received their report and are considering how to then roll that out to the broader staff. Centennial High School, Oliver Middle School, and Patrick Lynch have already finished this process, with the remaining schools hosting their equity audit visit sometime in the month of February. So excited to be able to report those findings when we receive them. Finally, on the topic of school funding, as you know, the Oregon Legislature is currently in session, and at the end of January, Governor Tina Kotek released her proposed budget. I will take a moment and offer a few highlights. So, and I don't have a slide for this, so you'll just have to bear with me with the dollar amounts. I sent some of this last week in my update to the board. The state school fund. So the governor has proposed a $9.9 billion state school fund, which is an increase of 6.5% over the current biennium. It's a $400 million increase from the initial recommendation from the state budget office for the next biennium of 23-25. So for Centennial, that represents roughly a $4 million increase. That's an encouraging development, and it's still $400 million short of the amount that has been calculated to represent the current service level. So for Centennial, we've got about $4 million up and about $4 million to go. Other major K-12 funding includes the Student Success Act of $997 million, which represents an increase of 9.5% from current levels. That's encouraging because the initial indication was for a flat roll forward dollar amount. So seeing that there's a proposed increase is encouraging. Also, Measure 98, also known as High School Success, is proposed to be $329 million, which would be a 5.8% increase over current biennium levels. There are also several other funding highlights, including dedicated funding for early learning in the primary grades in summer school. In summary, these are promising signs on the school funding front, and more advocacy efforts are needed in order to achieve funding at our current levels of service. We have initially scheduled for East County Government Affairs Administrator Stacy Michelson to join us for a report at our February 22nd board meeting to give us a more thorough rundown of what is happening during this legislative session as it pertains to K-12 education. I just learned this morning that the legislature is working through 2,242 bills. So there will likely be a lot for us to discuss when Stacy is here. With that, I welcome any questions or comments you have, and this concludes my superintendent's report.
Can you tell me where the first, when at the beginning of your report, the website, can you point that
Yeah,
out again?
I will. And I will send it in my Friday update, a link to it so that you can dig in more deeply. Of course, I cut the web address off, but I'll send it on Friday so that you can have access and be able to scroll through it.
Tell me what's going on at Cal.
That's a broad question.
It is a very broad question. Just wanting to know what, I've heard budgeting concerns and issues in terms of things a little bit outdated, et cetera. And this could be just a personal concern, right, of a staff member. But it is a place where we spend dollars and we send our students. Do we feel like it's still meeting the needs that have been established for Cal? Center for Advanced Learning, we just call it Cal. Just from your perspective, and is there any review process that we should be engaging in for that?
Yeah, so, I mean, kind of a broad question, and I don't, the concern that you're referencing, just so you know, is not on my radar. I don't know anything as far as a budget concern or anything of that sort. What I will say is that Cal actually has a pretty healthy ending fund balance, which we were a little bit jealous of a couple of years ago when they were looking at about $1 million ending fund balance and we were looking at 200,000. So that's just some context when you were asking the question. Overall, what I would say is this. They have a new director as of last year, Jessica Gallagher, who's in her second year. I think she's a very dynamic director and has a solid vision for what she wants to accomplish with the programming. One of the things that I had provided feedback to previous directors on, because in the role of assistant superintendent, which I held before this role, the role of that position that Dr. Katsuda is in, is to be the evaluator of the director of the Center for Advanced Learning. One of the feedback pieces I had provided to previous directors was around ensuring that programming is complementing and not competing against what is offered in the home districts. And that is becoming increasingly more of something that we need to be aware of in our school districts, because when that program came into being a couple of decades ago, the landscape was different. We had schools that were cutting their vocational programs, now known as career and technical education programs. And with High School Success Measure 98 funds, we've been able to reinstate or add programming that we hadn't had before, or we had and lost and are adding back. So when you have that dynamic, then you can create, especially when you have a school like Cal that's serving 5 component high schools, a need to try to map out, okay, here's all of the offerings that are happening in home high schools. Here's what Cal's offering. And I would say, and I'd let Principal Miller, if he wouldn't mind me putting him on the spot, I would say in terms of the programming that Cal offers, it offers a value to our students. And I think that that's reflected in the fact that the projected enrollment for Cal is higher than it's been the last few years. And it's one of the highest projected enrollments that they've had. Their enrollment between the 5 component districts is over 500 students. And so I think that there's a good level of demand there. And the programming that they offer, I'll just rattle off a few, are fashion design, computer programming, nursing and medical. And so they offer specific programming that isn't something that we necessarily offer in our home high school. So, I mean, to answer off the cuff, I would say I'm encouraged with the programming and direction of the school, but I know it's always something that we want to continue to evaluate and assess and not just roll things forward into perpetuity because it's the way we've always done them. Yeah.
I think, yeah, there it goes. All right, so yeah, just to reiterate what Mr. Owens, Superintendent Owens was saying, is that we have, Cal offers several programs to our students that we do not have the ability to offer. Particularly, one of the examples, just to bring it up, I was talking to one of our students today, super interested in the medical field. In fact, even starting a club at our school to bring in different medical practitioners and help them to actually talk with the students to show them what it is. But we don't have something that really leads to that pathway. Cal does lead to that pathway. And so it's a cool integration where the student can go to Cal, get the pathway for what they really want, and it goes back to that modality conversation we were having earlier, but then in the afternoon comes back to our school and then helps enrich our school from their learning. And so, you know, seeing what Cal has done, I would reiterate what Superintendent Owens says. They offer certain things to our students that we just cannot, and it's really helping our students. The cost-benefit analysis, of course, that is up to you as you continue to consider Cal. But what I have seen, the conversations I have had, is that it's really helping a lot of our students achieve their dreams. So it's been a good experience and a good partnership between the high school and Cal.
So is Cal just for juniors and seniors? I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so they do promotion and recruitment as sophomores. So recruitment's happening now, and then it's intended for juniors and seniors. They've always kind of thought about how to expand that out to younger grades, but that's where it is currently.
So when we talk about 5 component schools, we're still talking about just a subset of the kids that attend those schools that are able to participate.
Exactly. They have, so Centennial has roughly 100 seats, and they have a morning and an afternoon offering that they have. And so we have, roughly a fifth of what Cal offers. But I don't know how that relates to our demand for seats. I don't know if we are waitlisting any students.
Yeah, you brought it up. It actually increased this year, and I think we're running 130, if I remember, right now.
Okay.
A lot of it is busing capacity, what we have capacity, what we need to approve for, and then the capacity also of what's in the student schedule. Because a lot of our students want to take AP classes or other classes at the high school, and so that there are limiting factors to that as well.
Yeah.
So we look at each of those individual students, figure out a schedule that works best in relationship to where Cal offers their program. The cool thing is this year, several of their programs, they now offer on both AM and PM. So our students do have the opportunity, hey, I really want to find out more about dentistry. I want to be in this program, but I need to I want to take this AP class. And so it at least this one to follow for us.
And if the board is interested, and we can talk about it in our leadership meeting, Jessica Gallagher is always interested in being able to present directly to the board. So that's something we haven't had in a while, is a Cal director report, and that might be something that we want to have here at some point this spring.
Thank you very much, Superintendent.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, next up for reports, we have our OSEA President, Chris Dowell. If you want to. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. First it yells at you. This meeting. I'm just playing. Hey, welcome. Thank you for having me. I have the privilege of hanging out with some of our teenagers in our district. And I have to say, as we conduct the business of the school district, we work with some really cool kids. Like, I truly believe in the teenagers that I work with. And I have been building a Change the World team. And I just have to tell you guys that our teenagers really are going to change the world. The magic that happens in my office, I'm super excited about. So coming to OSEA. I also am really excited about the work that we are doing with OSEA. I've had some meetings with some of you in that very room in the last couple of weeks, and I feel like we're really moving in such a great direction. At OSEA, we're really excited about the work groups that are happening between supervisors and the people doing the work. I think that for many of our members, we felt the disconnect between the work that they're doing and maybe what the expectations are. And so just to have a place where we can start to flush out some of those things has been really important and positive work. And it is still definitely a work in progress, and we're kind of beginning stages, but I do think we really are on to a place where we can kind of build substantial kind of support for our people and for our craft. I mean, I think that we spend a lot of time in education talking about the education part of our craft. And for classified employees, we often represent the operational part of our craft. And so I think that it's time for us to kind of spend some time into developing what that looks like. We are in reclassification season, so our labor management team will definitely have a big task to take. I think the last count I had was 11 positions are requesting reclassification this year. So it's some work. It will be a project for sure. To speak to some of the advocacy, OSEA has been proud and excited about our increase in advocacy. I was blessed to be able to go to a leadership conference in DC earlier or last month. And then our very own Justin Dowell, lead secretary at Powell Butte, was able to testify to the House Roll Committee in Salem last week to promote Classified Appreciation Week and House Bill 2708. And doing that, we've really kind of elicited some student interest in legislative education issues. And so I'm in the beginning stages, got to talk to Mr. Miller about maybe possible field trip to Salem for Legislation Education Day. We're excited about all of that and all of the ways in which we can highlight Centennial. Also, from that trip in DC, I will be sending to our district leadership and to you at the board. AFT, our parent organization, had put together a work group regarding staff shortages, and in true classified fashion, they have action steps for you. Every chapter ends with what we can do at the legislative level, what we can do at the district level, what we can do at the union level to support our staff shortages. Some very interesting reads in terms of HR processes and how we can simplify that. And I have to offer, maybe it's time to get rid of leave forms. Those triplicate of forms are expensive and a workload issue. Here's my hint. Anyway, I'm excited about the work moving forward. We are building a bigger, better, oh, that's corny. But we're building back our leadership and we're excited about the work. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Chris. Next up, we've got a report from CEA President Amanda Kassab. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Hello, good evening, board directors and Centennial Cabinet. Thank you for having me here. So we are busy starting to look towards the 23-24 school year. Conversations are starting to happen at our buildings about what it might look like next year. I've heard positive things about the equity audit so far. Appreciation towards the surveys that are going out to all stakeholders, and just all around being able to share voice. And we have the calendar committee starting on Monday, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating and looking at some innovative ways we can create the calendar for next year. While I just lost my thought, I'm so sorry. With Black History Month, I want to give a shout out to Denise Wright for the resources that have been sent out. I know I have enjoyed using some of them, and they are very much appreciated. And with that, we continue to work towards supporting the needs of each individual student while providing the solid academic and social emotional education that we can. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That brings us to the end of reports. Taking a temperature, if we want to go through confirmation items, let's keep going through confirmation items and then we can look at a break. Excellent.
I move we approve confirmation items.
Second.
Any questions or concerns on the topics? Great, let's go ahead and take a vote. It has been moved and seconded that we confirm en masse these items. So raise your hand and say aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Excellent. At this point, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll rejoin at 7:54. We'll rejoin at like 8:04, 8:05, somewhere right in there. Thank you all for your attendance and break.
Recording stopped.
Several motions made about the agenda, acclamation, but not everybody was somebody wanted to add something. And he said, and that board member was like, well, then all his acclamation votes were and the team left. Oh! She got so upset that he left and the superintendent chasing down.
We're going down this weekend. I wonder if I might be in an earful of something.
Yeah, well, YouTube, there's so many school board meetings, like, I pulled it up on YouTube and started watching it. My wife was like, you're watching a video of a board you're not even on.
Well, sometimes it can be very interesting.
It gets juicy for my interest.
It's like, I've heard this is a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Sorry to interrupt you. Did you want to bring plus one to party with purpose? Was it still open? It is still open. That's okay. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Melissa's gonna bring her husband, and so I just wanted to, and Rose said your husband doesn't care.
If you'd like to put me down for plus one,
Okay.
but if anyone else pops in, pop my plus one. My plus one will not be disappointed.
Okay, gotcha. And her name, or his name, Kristen. So K-R-I-S-T-E-N. Okay. Last name? Okay.
Not according on our taxes yet.
Yeah, we don't.
I'm so curious. Oh, is this being on here? She still has to be. So like, I just did my taxes. And I can't remember. Even though I'm on the county, but then
Needs to be into that.
This is one more deal.
Is it not catching?
she doesn't do the taxes, so it doesn't come up to her.
It's like,
It's not gonna catch
that's
it.
one of the things I
So like
didn't change
David
my
doesn't
last
really get
name,
anything
which has always been
Oh, it's right.
confusing sometimes, but when we, kindergarten roundup, you know, and you go with your kid and all that kind of stuff. It's the very first time where I actually saw my name not being a vegetable.
Okay.
Because they were used to the fact that mom and dads could do us names. It's like, and we had, I was fired at Centennial. And I was teaching at the high school, 3 weeks in, I get a call to the office from the office and say, you need to get down to teacher. There's something wrong. I'm your teacher for primary six. Get down here. They say, no, you gotta go to HR, get an HR. And they said, you know what, I cannot, we don't have, our TSPC or teaching assistants. I was just like, dudes, it's been, I left you a copy, it's supposed to be verified. You can't go back and revise it. And I'm like, but, okay, I am here. I'm like, they say, okay, we're going to work on TSPC, we're going to see what we can do. I have conditional. I have freaking tears out here. I'm going tomorrow. Right? Because it's like, oh, this is so much fun, right? Comes up to me and said,
I do. I want to go. We'll figure out. I'll figure out.
oh, you married little rotten fetches. I went, yeah. She goes, I was the assistant librarian when he was at grade school. I'm like, oh, but I work in, where are you now? Oh, I work in HR records. I said, is there any possibility, because we got married the week before I started teaching.
Sorry, doing circles. Get my clap sense.
She had filed a
I've been that bureaucrat who calls in the school district and say, I just looked at your staff race, so is not applicable. And then they're just like, oh, well, they changed their name. Scared somebody.
well, and that was it. And she hadn't come out to comfort me, right? And if I servicing early, they had serviced me early, all like water. So my neighbors sort of know, she got just as soon. So that, but it taught me really early, always check. That's my job. It was contrary to what was kind of the norm at that time, for sure. So that's my job. I have to find out where have I been flying?
I was really glad you brought up the immersion.
Not tiny homes, but tiny shelters for homeless. So they're starting really small, right?
Yeah, my daughter did the same thing when she was
Because they were building that house, that was yeah, and there was the, yeah. Oh, I've got a question for you. Honestly, I don't really know. Figure out a way to bring people together.
It was on that, either the 4th or the 19th. And I wasn't sure which more I understand the thing. Oh, I know. Oh, good. Okay. I think it's a Wednesday. The 3rd is a Wednesday. So Wednesday or Thursday. It would. So, make and the only reason why is because, like, most everybody for that. And then, like, the 4th doesn't work for David. So I didn't know.
I'll check for you.
We did have,
Okay. And I think that's, I mean, it happens as it is, right? Okay, so I will make myself a note. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Missy.
When they were putting some things together. See, that's, it, there has been discussions about, you know, when you're in the auditorium and you're the bar park, that has been talked about.
my role is to figure out how we're going to fund it.
This is your 1-minute warning.
Yes, the beautiful one, beautiful. Yes, of course.
Just dream.
And at nighttime, it just lit up pretty.
Meant to be a
Oh, where's your tie, like, standing there?
And it has to be this color. I used to be a tie guy. I've got a couple in my office that they need a thumbs up.
I think we can. All right, everybody, coming back to order. 8:05.
Recording in progress.
It's 8:05 and we are back in order. Let's see, we've just got a few items left that I think we'll be able to move through. First off, we've got some old business. Approval of CMS HVAC cooling with Director Southerton.
All right. Thank you, Chair Slawski. So good to be with you all here again. So we have another bond project for consideration of approval and award this evening. The administration is requesting the approval of a change order or / award to the existing contractor to Ainsworth Incorporated. They're formerly Delta Connects. That's what the contract was originally approved under, and now they've merged with another company, so they're now Ainsworth Incorporated. And the award is to add the scope for cooling of the 400 and 500 wing classrooms. If you look at the display, those are going to be the classrooms that are in the red boxes there. So a total of about 20 classrooms. And this is to the two-story addition at Centennial Middle School. Given the historically warm temperatures in that building specifically, which are much higher than other classrooms in the district, the board approved adding cooling as a approved bond project previously. You'll recall that Delta Controls, now Ainsworth Incorporated, is the contractor currently awarded the bond-funded mechanical system upgrades to Centennial Middle School based on a competitive bidding process last year where theirs was the low bid. This work is scheduled to be completed in March, and at this time we feel like adding this is a logical and cost-effective way to complete this work. They're already mobilized, they're on the job, there's cost savings involved with having them add this to their scope. Well, good question, Director Shields. That with the original scope of mechanical work to be finished next month, and then this would be finished in June. So, thanks. I'm happy to clarify that for folks. By awarding this through a change order to the existing contract, it will also help ensure the work is completed in the quickest and possible time frame before summer school starts, which is fantastic for our students and our staff who will be working this summer. So, Ainsworth's proposal for this work is $450,606.89, which is within the allocated budget for this project. It's recommended that the Board of Directors approves the change order award of $450,606.89 to the current mechanical contractor for Centennial Middle School, which is Ainsworth Incorporated, to add the cooling to the 400 and 500 wing classrooms. I welcome any questions you may have. Yes, Superintendent, a round of applause there from Director Shields for those that couldn't see, and Superintendent Owens will agree that this is long overdue.
Super exciting.
Yes, I'm excited.
Are there any questions?
May I make the motion?
Please do.
A motion to approve the change order for $450,606.89 for the current mechanical contract for Centennial Middle School, Ainsworth Incorporated, to add cooling to the 400 and 500 wing classrooms.
Excellent.
Yay.
All right.
Every teacher loves air conditioning.
It has been moved and second to approve this change order. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote. Fantastic. Congratulations. And especially congratulations to those teachers. Is that the Mustangs wing up there?
Our students and staff.
Yeah.
They'll be very happy.
Excellent. Got some new business up. First up, we've got Dr. Katsuda.
I make the motion? Motion to recommend that the board adopt the attached guidelines for student interdistrict transfers for the 2023-2024 school year.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments at this point before we take a vote?
I just really appreciate the depth of the presentation earlier because it just made this make sense. I mean, it made sense in the board note as well, but that extra that you provided for us up front is really important for that total understanding of what we're.
All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fantastic, unanimous. It has been approved. Next up, under new business, we've got Director Wright with the first read of a policy.
Hello, everyone. I am presenting a policy to you all this evening, and the last time the alternative education programs policy was adopted was in 2014. So while there is a brief description of why we need to adopt it, having a policy that's been in place for so long, it warranted an update, and luckily OSBA was able to provide that update. Happy to answer any questions that you all have. Yes.
Was there anything substantive that changed in the policy? It looked like it was just some wording changes and moving a few sentences around.
You are correct. Yep. They added a few more words and some updated revised statutes.
I move that we approve, even though this is just the first reading, policy IGBHA.
Second.
Second or third.
Any question and comments before we move to a vote? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right.
You're here for the next one, too.
I am, yes. All right. This is the annual process that the board is required to go through to review and approve the private and public alternative education programs that we contract with or are operating with. An approved list, a previous approved list has been attached, and I am happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Please.
I'd love to see the report, if that was possible.
Yes, it is. Yep. It is
Or
not.
executive summary or something
Yep.
like that. That'd be awesome.
I'm
See the
happy to.
evaluation stuff.
And there are, I looked at it while we were sitting, there's over 60 areas that each of these programs is evaluated on. So it's a very long list.
Is there an executive summary?
Yes. Yes, there is. Yeah.
I'll be
there's-
happy
yeah,
with whatever. Thank you
yes,
very much.
yeah, there is. It's all included on the same document. So we are trying to consolidate it this year to have fewer than 63 areas that we look at.
Motion to approve the list of educational programs as presented.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments before we move to a vote? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Another unanimous vote. Excellent. Moving right along, we've got some future agenda items.
So I've got 3 that we will have upcoming planned for the next meeting, which is a recognition of our classified employees. We have a legislative update scheduled with Stacy Michelson, as I referenced during my report. And then Lauren Klafke will be here for, believe it or not, a strategic plan draft plan review. So we'll have a draft to review at the February meeting with the anticipation that we will have something more solid in the early March meeting for us to, for the board to consider for approval.
Will we be meeting remotely?
That's the plan. I believe that Lauren is joining us virtually from her home on the East Coast, so good question. Yep.
Anything Anything else for the good of the order? Please.
I just wanted to let the board know that I will be running for position 7, when Roger was saying that he was not going to be running for the position. It's a 2-year commitment. I have been weighing my, my options and continuing position 4, but that would be a 4-year commitment. And the reason why I'm looking at the 2 years, because I'd really like to see the bond come to its conclusion. Been working on that for a very long time, and it feels like it'd be nice to just have this 2 extra years to see it through. So I just want to let you know, you were like, why was she leaving 4 to go to 7? And it's because of the remainder of the term being 2 years.
Thank you. Please.
And I will be running for position 4. So I thought I would let everybody know that. And I've scheduled with Missy to go tour schools on the 17th.
Oh, that's
I
fantastic.
have a non-student contact day, so I thought I would go see some schools. So.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Anything else?
I believe there is the Centennial Neighborhood Association volunteer and job fair that's coming up as well.
Yeah, on Saturday, the 18th, at 162nd and Stark. It's youth-powered, or center-powered by youth. And there should be 15 to 20 vendors, just volunteering and job fair. So
Nice.
if people
Awesome.
are interested, let me know.
Yep. Put out an email, right?
Sure.
Oh,
Go right ahead.
Cal, if it fits into our schedule, I know sometimes our board meetings are very full and it may not be appropriate. But if we could look to having maybe a view of Cal and what they're doing and how they're supporting our students. And it would be nice to know, since we haven't had that opportunity to have a conversation. And looking to the future of what might we else be offering if there's capacity or reason to.
Are you thinking something beyond the director report to do something more internal, where we're providing internal report?
I think all of us, it would be nice for all of us as a board to be on the same page about our understanding of Cal. And then if we want to delve into it more on an individual basis or with your leadership, especially with you being on that board, I think that's kind of after we just haven't had an opportunity to see what they're doing. And I know they do good work, and I want to be supportive
Yep.
of them.
Yep, perfect. Sounds good. We'll put that together for sure.
And it would also be nice to know how they're doing post-pandemic.
Yes.
They were having difficulty during, and maybe that's why we're seeing, I don't know, just, since we haven't had a briefing in so long.
We don't, yeah.
What's happened since the last briefing?
Yeah. Perfect. Hey.
This meeting is adjourned at 8:19 p.m.
You were looking like, I'm not sure if we can let it go. Who's going to say what next?